Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Ben David, coming to you live from Israel with the top headlines coming out of this region and beyond. It's 2 p.m. here in Israel, it's 7 a.m. in New York City, and these are the latest developments. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington today for a high-stakes White House meeting with President Donald Trump. The Iran war and the Iranian nuclear program, the post-war Gaza plan, the Lebanon ceasefire are all expected to be on the agenda, with the outcome of these talks possibly determining the region's security landscape in the days, months, and years to come. Aboard Air Force One, President Trump confirmed some differences with Netanyahu over Iran, but made clear that he will be the one making the final decisions.
They want to meet, and we're meeting. We'll see what happens. There's a chance we could make a deal. Without what we did, they wouldn't even be talking to us. They requested a meeting through their surrogates and directly. And we're meeting, and, good things can happen, I guess. Their whole shoreline's wiped out. The strait is in very good shape. And we're talking right now. They wanted to talk. Their people said, please don't shoot last night, the night before, 2 nights. Don't do it. We're having good talks. So we'll see what happens. I think there's a good chance that something could happen. And if it does, good. If it doesn't, we go back to doing what we were doing 2 days ago.
Are you on the same page on Iran, you and Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Close, yeah. Pretty close. We have a little difference, but pretty close, yeah. Iran took a beating over the last 14 days. And they asked us very nicely, please stop. Let's meet. And that's what we are right now. We'll see what happens. If we don't make a deal, we go back to the same thing.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu will also be attending a memorial service today for the late Republican Senator Lindsey Graham to be held at Washington's National Cathedral. President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will also attend. Now, Netanyahu's visit comes amid growing signs of some diplomatic progress between Washington and Tehran, with a Trump administration official saying indirect talks have reached a, quote, serious stage. The sides confirmed having exchanged proposals, though no agreement has yet been reached. Regional officials also tell Reuters that mediators led by Qatar, Pakistan, and Oman have made significant progress towards restoring an interim truce after 3 days without reported U.S. or Iranian attacks. Diplomatic efforts are focusing on reviving the ceasefire and establishing a mechanism to safeguard shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's foreign ministry confirmed that mediators are continuing to pass messages from the U.S., but insisted there are still no direct talks between Washington and Tehran. Well, even as the U.S. and Iran maintain their tentative pause in hostilities, Iran-backed proxies are continuing to keep the region on edge, with a new wave of drone attacks targeting Israel and key U.S. allies. For a second straight day, the Israeli Air Force intercepted a drone near the Jordanian border before it entered Israeli airspace. The IDF says the UAV was shot down early this morning in the Dead Sea region. No air raid sirens were activated, and the source of the drone remains under investigation. The incident comes a day after Israel intercepted 2 other drones in the same area, underscoring continuing security concerns along the Eastern Front, despite the current lull in direct U.S.-Iran hostilities. Jordanian forces also reported shooting down 2 drones, while Iraqi security officials said multiple drones struck camps housing Iranian opposition Kurdish groups in North Iraq. In Saudi Arabia, the defense ministry said it intercepted drones targeting petroleum facilities in Riyadh and the eastern province, blaming Iran-backed militias operating from Iraq. Satellite images appear to show damage at the Abqaiq oil processing facility. Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility for attacks aimed at oil transit routes leading to Saudi Arabia's Red Sea port of Yanbu, prompting Saudi airstrikes on Houthi targets in Hodeidah. Well, the latest attacks underscored while direct U.S.-Iran strikes have paused, Iran's regional proxy network remains active, keeping the threat of a broader conflict still very much alive. Turning now to Gaza, the IDF says its forces have destroyed another Hamas tunnel, hundreds of meters long in northern Gaza, as the military continues its campaign to dismantle the terror group's underground network. The operation was carried out by the 99th Division and elite Yahalom combat engineers east of the Yellow Line. Defense officials say more than 80% of the tunnels in IDF-controlled areas have now been destroyed. Meanwhile, the IDF and Shin Bet say they eliminated several senior terror operatives in precision airstrikes, including Hamas's internal security commander, Wal al-Dawi, who helped plan attacks against Israel. The IDF also said it killed a Palestinian Islamic Jihad operative who took part in the release ceremony of an Israeli hostage, along with a Hamas police commander in North Gaza. In a separate development, Israel has released 60 Gazan detainees back into the Gaza Strip. That's the largest single release of detainees arrested during the war. The release, which follows a series of smaller transfers carried out during the ceasefire, these detainees are believed to be individuals against whom Israel did not have sufficient evidence to file criminal charges. Elsewhere, Israeli officials are raising concerns that Iran could attempt to interfere in Israel's upcoming election campaign, including possible efforts to target candidates and public officials. According to Khan News, the warning was discussed during a closed session of the Knesset Subcommittee for Intelligence and Secret Services. Committee Chairman Boaz Bismuth said the election season is likely to be a prime target for Israel's enemies, warning that Iran may try to deepen internal divisions and turn the campaign into another front in its confrontation with Israel. Shin Bet Director David Zinni reportedly told lawmakers that Iran and other foreign actors are actively seeking to influence and undermine the election process. Participants in the meeting said Zinni appeared deeply concerned by the threat. Meanwhile, Central Election Committee Chairman Justice Noam Solberg said security and election officials are working closely to protect the integrity of the vote and ensure a fair, secure, and trustworthy election process. Well, let's get back to this big meeting today in Washington, D.C., and all the issues that are going to be involved there. Joining us for more on that are Professor Eytan Gilboa, an expert on U.S. Israel relations at Bar-Ilan University and Reichman University, and Shiri Fein Grossman, CEO of Israel-Africa Relations Institute and the former head of regional affairs at Israel's National Security Council. Professor Gilboa, before we start getting into the specifics of what the meeting is about, maybe just give us your assessment of how this meeting compares to some of the previous trips Prime Minister Netanyahu has made to the White House. People are talking about tensions. Some people are using the word even crisis or potential crisis in U.S. Israel relations. What's your feeling?
Happy to be with you on this program. This meeting is somewhat awkward. Netanyahu initiated a request for this meeting about 2 weeks ago. There were all kinds of reservations at the White House, and Netanyahu wants to participate at the memorial service you mentioned earlier for Senator Lindsey Graham. And so when asked about a potential meeting with Netanyahu, Trump said, "Oh, if he is in town, then I'll meet him." This is not a proper way to organize a high-level meeting between an Israeli prime minister and a president. Not only that, Trump defined the meeting as private. Never happened before in the meetings, and also close to the media. Trump likes very much the media, and at least at this time, it's going to be closed. There's not going to be even sufficient time to discuss all the issues because the two leaders are scheduled to attend the memorial service we mentioned earlier, and they have to go to the Washington Cathedral. It takes time. So the agenda is complicated because it was reported as if Netanyahu is going to bring with him secret intelligence about Iranian efforts to rebuild their nuclear weapons program at that mountain. What's the name of it? Pickaxe Mountain. And this is not a good information because it means that the United States does not have enough or good intelligence. And also, there are many groups in the United States, in the American political system, who have accused Netanyahu of dragging the United States into the war with Iran in the first place. And now Trump does not want to resume high level intensity warfare, and bringing that kind of intelligence suggests that Netanyahu wants resumption of full scale war with Iran, and probably this is the major disagreement that Trump has alluded to.
Well, Shiri, why don't you pick up on that? As Eytan said, the circumstances are a little unusual here. I used the word awkward. There's a lot on the agenda, but clearly on the issue of Iran, President Trump seems to be moving in one direction. Of course, with President Trump, it could always change quite suddenly. Prime Minister Netanyahu is staying firm in his direction. Simply, Iran can't be trusted.
Well, we need to rise above the actual intelligence that we don't have, right? And I don't know if it's hard to trust all the different articles that are coming out from the different media outlets on whether it's just a spin and either country or actors trying to drive reality in a different direction. But if we move past that and just look at the circumstances that we have an Iran that is still interested in a nuclear program. It is not giving that up. It has enough capacity to rebuild whatever was evidently enough capacity to rebuild. We don't know how long it's going to take for them to rebuild those capabilities, but we know they are motivated. And I think the maximum that Iran is willing to give is that doesn't meet what the threshold that the U.S. is willing to accept. So I think if we rose above this, we'll see that I don't see how this is turning out in a way that we get to some sort of an agreement, given the current leadership and personas we're seeing on the Iranian side. But I can tell you, I mean, it's something different that is more complex that we have to understand is going on. It's actually a battle over how the region is forging. Who's the regional homogeny? What are the forces? And actually, this is a battle not only between Iran and Israel, but we have Turkey and Qatar that on this are very much on possibly Iran's side, and I think they're also kind of. We've seen this time and time again. It seems like, I don't know, but it seems like they're telling the president, hey, we're close to getting a deal. We're close to getting a deal. And in the end of the day, we're not, because of everything I said previously. In the end of the day, they are motivated and they're just trying to buy time to get us closer to the midterms in the U.S. So President Trump is kind of bound and to act, and in the meantime, they're going for their capabilities, rebuilding their capabilities in the nuclear, and of course, in the Straits of Hormuz is a dramatic question for the entire region and Gulf states. Will it stay closed as this and this? For it to be closed or taking any kind of fee from Iran is a complete change of the regional dynamics that we just if we accept that reality, it's a very bitter reality for us strategically in the future. And I do want to say one word on the memorial service of Senator Graham. I think he was not just an ally, but he was a very I would say a very important and key actor in stabilization in the region and a voice against anti-Semitism, anti-Israelism, and pushing for the Abraham Accords. And we lost a great friend in the U.S. and I think this also has strategic consequences going forward.
Right. Well, let me pick up on that with Professor Gilboa, because I agree. It does seem the untimely passing of Senator Graham at this time is almost kind of symbolic. We don't see that many politicians like him unabashedly supportive of Israel, certainly not among Democrats and increasingly not among Republicans. We see the rise of politicians like Vice President J.D. Vance. By the way, reports in the Israeli media today that he's going to be sitting in on that private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. It's not probably the person the prime minister want to see? How much bad are these, or heavy are these political headwinds now moving against the direction of the kind of support for Israel that Lindsey Graham represented?
Yes, first of all, I agree with the praise for the late Lindsey Graham. I met him several times. He was one of the greatest friends of Israel in the American Congress, in the Senate. He contributed to pro-Israel legislation, a number of resolutions of the Senate resolution he was responsible for. And I don't think we are going to find someone like him in the next decade or so. Now, about the meeting and J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance criticized Israel and Netanyahu for alleged a campaign against him around the memorandum of understanding. J.D. Vance, unfortunately, does not have experience in foreign affairs or even conflict resolution. And Trump was joking by saying that if the negotiations succeed, then he will take credit. And if they failed, he would blame J.D. Vance. And so it would be very interesting to see his influence, J.D. Vance's influence on Trump. I believe that if he were to sit together with the president during the meeting today with Netanyahu, his motivation is simply to keep an eye on both. He wants to make sure that Trump is not persuaded again by Netanyahu to resume a full-scale war with Iran. J.D. Vance opposed the war from the beginning, and he believes that the way to move forward is only via diplomacy.
Right. Shiri, of course, you could pick up on any of that, but I do want to also pick up on a country that you mentioned briefly, which is Turkey. Because in that interview on the airplane that we showed a clip from, he was asked, President Trump was asked about the sale of F-35s, or the F-35, Turkey rejoining the F-35, joining the F-35 program. And he says he's definitely in favor of it, even though described Erdogan as a friend, even though he's not fond of Israel. And this is an issue in which the rare issue which Prime Minister Netanyahu has openly opposed the position taken by President Trump. I mean, how serious is this rift? How serious are the potential consequences for Israel?
And again, we have Senator Graham on our side on this issue as well. Turkey and Erdogan specifically systematically changed Turkey from Ataturk secular democracy to an autocracy that locks away its opposition leader with no freedom of speech, with taking over the police, everything, and putting F-35 in the hands of a leader who just openly says that Israel needs to be wiped off the map, and has ambitions to reinstate the Ottoman Empire with bases in Syria, and trying to get into having forces on the ground in Gaza is a very bad reality for us. It's something that Netanyahu, I think, needs to change his strategy. And it has to do with politics, unfortunately, and this is something I rarely speak to. But we have to, if we want to fight against what is Erdogan is kind of preaching, we have to bring a different approach and a different kind of language and terminology from this current government that we have to something different, to counter what the Turkey and Erdogan and Qatar are trying to say about us, which is completely false. This is a much more complicated issue than just the F-35. It really has to do with where the region is headed, and I say, even future administrations and how they view Turkey, how they view Qatar is essential for Israel, and this is unfortunately a challenge that Netanyahu for now is struggling with.
Right. Let's pick up on the last bit, Professor Gilboa. One of the reasons Prime Minister Netanyahu is struggling is he's got to balance his domestic political concerns with with diplomacy, bringing to mind, I think, Secretary Kissinger's famous comment: Israel has no foreign policy, just domestic politics. How much is he being constrained by that? And how do you assess how his relationship with Donald Trump? We're not hearing President Trump talk about pleading for the pardon or that he did earlier. More and more we hear him describe Prime Minister Netanyahu as a wartime leader, as if, that was his position. He was a wartime leader. How do you feel that this relationship will go going forward?
Excellent question. Netanyahu would have liked Trump to endorse him, to say that he supports his bid for re-election. I'm not so sure that Netanyahu is going to get that. In domestic politics, in election time, Netanyahu has always presented himself as a great leader, someone who has very good relations with Trump, and that he is able to tell him no. Apparently, this October 7 war has demonstrated complete Israeli dependency on the United States. Trump is a friend of Israel, but he has to fight accusations and blames inside his own camp against his relations with Netanyahu. And this is important because in Israel and the United States, elections are going to take place within a few days. I don't think it ever happened before. Israeli elections on October 27 and midterm elections in the United States, not presidential elections, still important elections for the remaining 2 years of Trump at the White House. So Trump may think that Netanyahu, according to all public opinion polls, is going to lose. He's not going to be able to form a new government. In Trump's book, if someone is about to lose elections, then he is a loser. And in that category, or that category determines certain types of relations between the two sides. So it remains to be seen whether or not the leaders are going to come out and have a picture, and what kind of things are going to be said, what kind of body movements are going to tell us something about their relations. Netanyahu would have liked to come back with support from Trump for him.
Right, and unclear whether that will be, as you said before, so as far as we know so far now, it's going to be a private meeting, not even with that Oval Office spray, but we've seen Trump change his mind there. I also just know Prime Minister Netanyahu has in the past shown he can defy the pollsters. We'll have to see if he does it again. Getting back to the substance of the meeting, Shiri, Iran is the dominant agenda, but two other issues, Lebanon and Gaza. There are some significant developments here. There's announced another round of negotiations with Lebanon, report that some of those international forces Israel's going to start allowing them into their side of the yellow line, so to speak. I mean, is there room for progress at all on those two key issues that may be advanced here, or are they going to be at loggerheads on those as well?
So actually, these two main issues, these two key issues, both in Lebanon and Gaza, as we can see, there are very positive developments both in Lebanon. We saw a very good meeting between President Trump and the president of Lebanon. It seems that they have good chemistry. I think on a strategic level, peace with Lebanon or some sort of an agreement with Lebanon, and even the fact that the Lebanese army, with the help of American troops, would be able to push back Hezbollah, and that's a big if, okay? But if that is the case, then this is a huge strategic win. I think for everybody who wants a stable Middle East, but especially Israel, and I think to some extent even Netanyahu. On the Gaza front, we had a very important development that the Israeli cabinet has approved the international peacekeeping force, and actually a part of that is Moroccan troops. And I have to tell you, this is again another strategic win because Morocco is considered very highly among the Muslims around the world and in Gaza specifically. So they have also experience with counterterrorism, but also kind of the standing from a faith-based perspective. And I will tell you, the Israeli apparatus, security apparatus, has long been waiting for Morocco to come back and be an important player in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I think this is another win for the Board of Peace team with Ari Lightstone. I think this is a very crucial development, and kind of you didn't see that it puts Turkey's ground troops or others. And I think this is another kind of silent development that we're seeing. But actually, if we didn't have this news cycle that is crazy, that would be a huge development that we should look out for. So these are really positive things. But having said that, we have Iran, we have Turkey on both fronts trying to kind of really to hurt those developments on the ground. We've seen reports of Turkey trying to meddling with Lebanese politics and to support Hezbollah, and we've seen we know what it's trying to do in Gaza. So again, Turkey, Iran, Israel, these kind of themes that come back to what we're up against here. So it is important to look what will happen on the ground moving forward. And I say looking at the actions more of what will be said or not said, because those could be very misleading, unfortunately.
Right, and I agree with you. And I'm just going to end with my own comment that, like us in the media, we're going to be very focused on even the slightest nuances coming out of this meeting and then try to blow them up as best we can. But there are huge underlying developments in this region that you just talked about that I think we should pay attention to. It's not everything is happening everything today in one meeting in Washington, and there are some positive as well as some concerning trends going on just as well. Shiri Fein Grossman and Professor Eytan Gilboa, thank you for joining us here on ILTV.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have a brief word from one of our partners here at ILTV, Israel Bonds. Let's take a listen.
75 years ago, a bold idea helped build a nation. Since then, Israel Bonds has helped power growth, innovation, and resilience across Israel. Generation after generation, investors have turned values into action. Now, it's your turn to be a part of the next chapter. Celebrate 75 years of Israel Bonds. Invest today at israelbonds.com.
And finally, world-renowned British singer-songwriter Boy George has released a new song titled We Will Dance Again, expressing his support for Israel following the October 7th Hamas massacre. He's also a tribute to those who took part in the Nova Music Festival. Let's leave you here at ILTV listening to Boy George singing his song, We Will Dance Again.
But trust me, we will dance again. We will dance again. We will dance again. And there will be no war. But if you're ever confused, I stand with the Jews.